A lot of my money comes from my top spenders. He's one of my top biggest spenders. He is the biggest spender.
He's married with teenage children. Kristen Cabot has been divorced for 3 years. She was hired just 8 months ago. And now that 15 seconds of video is having a devastating impact on both of their lives.
He climbed the corporate ladder the old-fashioned way, not as a coder in a hoodie, but as a polished suit who knew how to sell growth. Andy Byron spent years at high-profile firms, moving from sales and operations into big executive roles. By 2023, he was the CEO of Astronomer, a hot data engineering company riding the wave of cloud tools and Apache Airflow. The story read like a modern startup fairy tale: steady hires, boardroom wins, a platform that promised to make complex data pipelines feel simple. That image was important. In the business press, Byron was described as a CEO who could scale teams and chase growth. He had the background, the resume, and the polished headshots to match the narrative. Investors and customers saw a safe, experienced leader, the kind of person who showed up to fundraising meetings with a clear roadmap and a measured tone. But public life for executives is a double-edged sword. The same visibility that helps a CEO raise money also makes private moments easier to leak. Then, in the middle of summer, something trivial and human collided with stadium spectacle. At a sold-out Coldplay show, a kiss cam, one of those playful zooms that pops up on the big screen, landed on Byron and a woman beside him. The footage was tiny, a single frame, a single broadcast beam that would travel the globe thanks to social media. What followed was anything but tiny. Within hours, clips of the kiss cam surfaced online. Viewers rewound the moment, debated whether it was a kiss, an embrace, or a startled pair caught mid-panic. The celebrity camera did what it always does. It turned a private blink into national gossip. The clip ricocheted through TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, meme fodder, late-night monologue material, conversation starter at brunch tables. And with that virality came a new headline for Byron: CEO in a kiss cam scandal. Media outlets moved fast. Profiles that once focused on product roadmaps and enterprise customers began to reframe Byron's story. The moment of being caught on camera with a colleague, later widely reported to be Astronomer's HR lead, was spun into narratives about boundaries, workplace conduct, and the hazards of public spectacle. The board at Astronomer announced an investigation. The optics were immediate and brutal. In just days, the executive who'd been steering a private tech company's public growth was facing a different kind of public ledger: social outrage, gossip, and an investigation that would not respect his carefully built career image. When reputations wobble that fast, the ripple effects are immediate. Customers ask questions. Investors call counsel. Employees whisper. The company announced Byron's resignation amid the fallout, a swift corporate move to stem reputational damage and reassure stakeholders. For a leader who once represented stability and scaling, the resignation read like a last chapter being written in public. Headlines had changed from product and fundraising to scandal and secrets. But that wasn't the end of a story. If anything, it had just begun. The kiss cam clip had opened one door, and behind it, the internet was already digging for what came next. A viral video is a blunt instrument, but the internet is never satisfied with a single click. Within days of the kiss cam storm, new reports emerged that suggested a deeper, messier private life, and they landed like another wave of bad press. News outlets started publishing allegations, reported messages, alleged private chats, and claims that Byron had spent significant sums on adult subscription platforms. Influencers and tabloids scrambled to source screenshots, and some social posts claimed that personal messages had been leaked by someone close to Byron. The story changed shape. It was no longer just an awkward stadium moment. It was now a narrative about secret spending, private conversations, and marital rupture. Those new claims spread fast. One of the punchier allegations that gained traction was a reported figure that Byron had spent in the hundreds of thousands on OnlyFans creators. The headlines were loud: six-figure sums, private chats, exclusive content, the kind of detail that turns curiosity into moral judgment. But careful coverage made a distinction. These were reports and claims in the press and on social platforms, and at least some of the material was described as alleged or leaked. That's an important distinction in a story like this, because rumor and file share can look like proof online. Still, The sheer volume of those claims turned the scandal from an embarrassing moment into a creeping sense that Byron's private spending and personal choices were now a public spectacle. Then another layer arrived, the human element. Reporters quoted social posts from people close to the story, including, according to several outlets, a spouse making private messages public. Whatever the motive behind those leaks, the effect was the same. The private details of a marriage and the alleged content of a CEO's direct messages were now being analyzed in public. Friends and strangers chimed in, lawyers scribbled notes, and pundits debated whether this was cruelty or accountability. And because money follows attention, more claims surfaced about personal financial strain, large transfers, secret accounts, and expensive tokens of infatuation. Headlines that once praised a CEO's boardroom savvy now questioned personal judgment and fiscal priorities. The narrative sharpened into a familiar arc, a powerful executive, a private lapse, and then a cascade of leaks that turned curiosity into scandal. By the time the dust settled on the second wave, the public had moved from what happened on stadium screens to what else was hidden. The curiosity had become a moral inquest. How much of a leader's private life matters when that leader's public persona sold trust to customers and investors? For Astronomer and its stakeholders, the question was no longer abstract. The company was already navigating reputational shock and questions about workplace relationships. Now it had to grapple with claims that touched on money, privacy, and marital disruption, all while headlines kept pushing the story forward. When scandals reach this scale, the next chapter usually moves into two arenas: corporate containment and legal defense. Astronomer moved to stabilize itself, placing employees on leave, appointing interim leadership, and signaling to customers and investors that the company would not let a personal scandal derail operations. That's the reflex of public companies and private startups alike. Protect the business, contain the optics, and try to move the narrative back to product. But containment only goes so far when the public appetite for gossip is insatiable. On Byron's side, reports said the former CEO considered legal action, including talk of suing concert organizers or the band for what he described in some statements as humiliation and invasion of privacy. That legal posture is a common move. When humiliation happens in public, lawsuits become a tool to reclaim control or at least demand damages. At the same time, other legal stories started to circulate in tabloids and social feeds: divorce filings, claims over assets, and the possibility of large settlements. Whether any of those claims would hold up in court or remain the stuff of headlines depended on documents that, at the time of reporting, were still unfolding. The social media reaction created its own economy. Memes replaced nuance. Late-night panels turned the viral clip into punchlines. Detractors celebrated the fall of a public figure. Others raised concerns about shaming and privacy. Comment threads became battlegrounds. Some insisted this was private behavior exposed and therefore protected. Others argued that certain private choices undermined a leader's credibility. That debate is always present when personal life intersects with public leadership, and the only real winners are the platforms that monetize outrage. For Astronomer, investors watched closely. In tech, reputational risk translates quickly into churn. Customers ask questions, employees feel unsettled, and future fundraising conversations can get awkward. Boardrooms that once praised charisma grow more conservative overnight. The company pivoted to emphasize continuity, engineering roadmaps, client commitments, and promises that the work would not be disrupted. Meanwhile, Byron's personal life, already in tatters by press reports, became the subject of further reporting and social speculation. So what's the takeaway from a story that began with a stadium camera and ballooned into a financial and reputational firestorm? For leaders, it's a sharp reminder that public visibility means private behavior can, and sometimes will, be scrutinized. For the public, it's a question of appetite and empathy. How much curiosity is fair, and when does curiosity become cruelty? And for the platforms and outlets that feed on scandal, this is the cycle that keeps their engagement numbers climbing. The aftermath is messy and unresolved. Reports and lawsuits may continue. Careers might recover, or they may not. But one thing is certain: in the age of smartphones and stadium screens, the line between a private moment and a global headline has never been thinner. A single frame, a split second on a kiss cam, can redraw a life in public ink, and then reveal other pages no one meant to read. This is one of those stories that reads like modern myth, success, spectacle, and the sudden crack that makes the whole thing wobble. From boardrooms and product launches to stadium screens and leaked messages, the Andy Byron saga is a lesson in how private life and public leadership collide in the social media era. Whether the public forgives, forgets, or moves on isn't a question for the cameras, it's a question for history. For now, the clips keep circulating, the headlines keep renewing, and the conversation keeps going. That's the way scandal travels in a world where everyone's phone is a press pass.